Moved by Brent, seconded by Bill, that the agenda for today's budget meeting be accepted as presented. All those in favor? Motion's carried. What's next on the agenda?
Disclosure.
Okay, any disclosure?
Disclosures, yes.
Any disclosure, pecuniary interest, or general nature thereof of any item on today's budget special meeting? Other than we're taxpayers.
But yeah, I was gonna say, what if we did?
Yeah.
We all did.
Okay, we'll note that in the minutes that there's no disclosure. And where do we go next? I don't have an agenda in front of me, obviously.
No, okay, we just sort of, I was talking with the managers. I can start.
Okay,
I'll start and then and I'll have Michael as well. He can add in some things too, just so that council knows that this budget for certainly it's a first kick at the can, if you want to say, for each of you to review and for discussion purposes, because we have the other meeting on the 2nd of March. As we met with the managers, they put the budgets, together. We sat down and there was a number of capital items. And I said, no, we're not going to be able to do some of these things. So actually, I said, we have to start cutting. So thanks to the managers for looking at their budgets closer. We did do some cutting, and certainly with some capital projects. We probably cut approximately 6 million out of the budget. So you'll find that with this budget, it's down considerably from what they first were, because I said, no, we cannot take that. We're going to have to do something. So, Tyson had some of it's the capital, it's the big project. So there are some you're going to see, some of the roads that we just cannot do this year, making capital unless we get grants for some of those. So I just wanted to let you know at that point. Also, too, if you're interested, I have in our CAO's meeting earlier this week, I had each of the Frontenac did share where they're at with their budgets, because I think they're finalized, or they're pretty close to finalized. Was North Frontenac is at 1.7, yeah. Counties at 2.1, South Frontenac is at 1.5, and the islands is at 3.8, and that's tax levy. Our tax levy right now is at 2.84 or 2.8. So, there's things we can certainly look at and go a little further, but just wanted to let you know that's where each of them are. So I think everybody is certainly reducing their budgets considerably, and which was fairly interesting as to how much we're coming out of reserves. A lot of them are taking monies out of reserves to do certain projects. Depends on certainly how many reserves, how much your reserves are. So that's where we're at. So Michael, did you want to add more things in it before we start with Jamie with his budget?
Yes, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Council, for being at this meeting today as well. Obviously, the draft budget you can see is a net increase of $252,000, as Kathy already mentioned, 2.84% levy increase. The tax rate draft is 1.3%, which equals this is in a document, sorry, that you would have already received, but $16 for every 100,000. So I'd just like to point that out, that is what is coming out of each person's pocketbook for every 100,000 in assessment, or on an average home, about $3 a month. So the operating budget is up about 469,000. Capital is down 217,000. The reserves were pulling just under 800,000 out versus last year pulling 1.4 million. I had, when we put these in with consultation, reduced the hall rentals to 75% of the revenue, thinking that maybe they wouldn't be up till summer or the fall. We can certainly adjust that, but a budget, so I reduced the $12,000 revenue to $3,000. So it's not a huge impact. Heat and hydro is down about $16,000 over the budget last year. It's still about $40,000 over, most of it being in public works for heat, hydro. They're items just like plowing that fluctuates so much that I wouldn't want to go any lower on that. But you'll see that as we go through the documents. Of the 469,000, 235,000 of that is for salary and benefits. There's 4 new positions basically that start around the June mark. A new building inspector, a new clerking position, an engineer asset management coordinator position, and there's a red grant position which Tyson and Adriana have applied for, council knows, and that position really was in a capital project before, so it's not exactly an increase, but it does fall into those numbers. That's about 129,000. The other part of that 235 is for benefits, which includes OMERS, CPP. CPP is about 21,000 of that. OMERS is 18,000. And health and dental is about 38,000. So last year we had a 18% increase, which of course was not budgeted for that much. And we have a 5.9% increase in benefits this year. Last year, to try and offset that, we do have staff paying a $5 deductible for prescriptions and $50 or $100 for dental, depending on if they're family or single. I think that's a lot of what I had to go over. Obviously, the other numbers, reserves and whatnot, are higher than they were before, but we are still probably lowest to our comparators of North and South by half or 70% lower. So our reserves, are, even though they're higher than what they were before, they're quite low in comparison, and they really are, in my mind, a better safety net than having to take out loans. So that $3.4 million loan that's in the draft budget right now is part, would put us up to about a 50% of our annual debt repayment borrowing limit, which to me is a comfortable max. So we wouldn't be able to take out any more loans, in my opinion. At least I wouldn't recommend them until 2024, unless it was for a project that was going to have a payback within 3 to 5 years. There, I think maybe it could be worthwhile. Yeah, that's. I think that's all that I need to add right now. That's enough talking. We can go through Jamie's if he's ready.
Okay, so we're going to start with fire.
Yes, yes, we're going to start with fire.
Let's wait till everybody gets the document, which
That on page 14 of what we have?
page 14.
I believe probably about right. I was just trying to increase the voice. Madam Mayor doesn't come across very loudly.
Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. I just wanted you to know what I was doing.
Normally I'm not, normally I'm too loud.
I have the same problem. So which document do we want to go to? And Cindy, I don't think I have permission to share my, oh, I just do, sorry. Let me go over there. I want to do this one. Share. Okay.
Actually, it starts on page 13, I believe.
Well, that's why I'm just trying to figure out which document we're going to go with.
Page 12.
Well, on page 11, it says total fire service administration expenses on the sheets that I have in front of me. But then you got fire services starting on page 10.
Yeah.
Nice picture, Michael. You have a picture of your kids.
Oh, is that what you guys are seeing right now? Sorry.
Yes.
I thought I saw that over, anyway, it doesn't matter what I did. I was moving things around, I guess, too much. Okay, but how do I?
Page 11.
What is the account number? I'm confused. I'm on, looking at a report here. What is the account number? When Bill's talking about a page 11 or 12, I don't see fire.
Okay, so I'm trying to get the document up here, Councillor Dewey, and I'm seeing my PDF, but obviously you guys aren't seeing what's on my other screen. You're still seeing my kids?
Yes.
How do I get on there, Cindy? So that's why, sorry, Cindy's coming in. Let me just move this over here just a second.
On my sheets, page number 10, it says fire services, and it starts with fire service revenue.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you click on,
That's-
up here for a sec.
Yes. My sheets, it starts at page 10 and goes to page 15.
On the GL account level detail, yes, I would start at page 10. Sorry, I'll
Yes.
bring it up here in just a second if I can get myself muted too.
See that right after civic addressing revenue?
Yes. Total technology civic addressing.
Yeah, it's right after that.
Michael, you should rake your yard more often. There's too many leaves on it.
He's muted.
Not easy to do a budget by Zoom.
There he goes.
There we go.
Now he's got it up.
There we go. So now I'm unmuted.
And we,
Now,
and it looks good, Michael. We see what, that's page 10.
Michael, was
well,
it,
that's good at least. It's one step forward.
nice in here, was this circulated from you or Cindy?
From Michael.
Pardon?
Okay,
So this is what I would have emailed out. Yes.
yeah.
So how do I get?
That bigger, Michael?
I can.
Like you did for us, Michael, when we had ours.
You don't end up seeing the whole screen, which is okay. This is the major column right now anyway. So is this, so there's fire services. We're on page 10. Is that big enough, Madam Mayor?
You can't expand the whole thing, like, I can see all the people and a little square.
Oh,
Is that what everybody else is seeing?
I might need Cindy's help again, but I can't see any.
Excuse me, what?
I have a full screen.
Do you? Okay.
Mhm.
I don't know what I'm doing here. Let me see.
Do you have one screen or two, Fran?
Just one.
Okay, so the only thing you could do is to minimize the view of the participants to
Yeah,
the
I got it now,
smallest.
Cindy.
Okay.
There you go, Councillor McDonald. Now there are no leaves to rake.
Well, it's winter time.
Not now. I'm in La La Land.
How
so-
best did we do this? Just highlights?
Well, I think as we're going through, as Jamie's presenting, we can, like we've done before, I think, start here on page 10. Does anybody have any questions on that page before we leave it? If not, we go to the next page and we address them as they come up. That's okay?
And Jamie can certainly hit the highlights.
Yes, good idea. Thank you.
So,
Maybe-
yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, I guess going through the operations budget, it's pretty much similar to last year's operating budget. It was kind of hard to project because of the way COVID was last year. We had about 7.5 months of non-training last year. So trying to project firefighter compensations and training expenses. So I earmarked the same as last year. There was a couple of areas with the fire training and the EMS training. Move some funds around there with the goal of the emphasis on starting this year with the firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and hazmat certification training for CFFR. That going through, we left the wages as is for this year, which we should be all right, even with the increase with the training. And just a couple of the highlights, there was a larger increase with medical supplies and firefighter foam. And that just, of course, the medical expenses are all due to COVID. And instead of coding it to COVID, we wanted to capture it properly within the fire budget and allocate money accordingly to that. And the firefighter foam is, we had 4 calls last year that exhausted and actually we went over in that area. So it's just to restock our stock and have a little extra there as a buffer in case we have to get more.
So you're on page 12 now, Jamie?
Yes.
Okay, were there any questions on the other pages before we get too far into 12? I can't see everyone, so just speak up.
Madam Mayor, it's Brent.
I-
I have one quick question before we leave this page.
Okay.
It's actually page 10. So when we were
Okay.
starting out on revenue, I noticed that we're showing negative numbers for burn permits and fire fines. I'm just wondering why. I mean, I'm assuming that, you know, we've talked about bringing in this new burn permit system. I'm sure we're going to be collecting some revenue from that. So I'm just wondering if you could provide a little more detail on those numbers.
So the fire fines,
I think it's the matter that revenues are in brackets. Is that not true, Michael?
yeah, so
Madam Mayor, sorry, I was interjected with what's the, I heard what Councillor Cameron was saying initially about negatives, and those are revenues. That's how they come across.
Yeah. It doesn't mean we're not going to get them granted, just that's how revenues are shown as bracketed.
as bracket.
Correct.
Okay, no, that's perfectly fine. I just wanted to make sure that you know, we were actually reflecting that some money's going to be coming in.
Yes.
Right. Okay, somebody else with a question?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's Nikki.
Go ahead.
Chief, you have down on page 11, Firehouse. Is that just a typo that you haven't typed in, changed the name of the new system that you're using? And it will be that same cost as Firehouse because you switched to the new system?
Correct, Nikki. It's just we haven't adjusted the firehouse to crisis now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Gowdy, the fire chief, acting fire chief didn't pay the fee for me to switch the name in the financial software, so I didn't do it yet. I'll get that done, Jamie. Thanks.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's continue on page 12 then.
So on just a couple highlights on page 12, our vehicle repairs and maintenance.
Can you talk about a number? Like when you talk about this, we used to have numbers on the side. Can you give me an expense number? Like I'm having trouble jumping around here, trying to find the exact line item when you're talking about it, Jamie. Like what's the account number?
So it's 0402 71868.
78. Okay, right, I got it.
Yeah, so vehicle repairs and maintenance, you'll see quite a drastic decrease over last year's budget. That was due to last year we had to replace tires on 8 vehicles. So that's where the 30+ thousand difference is this year, less. Also, having the second mechanic now has also helped as far as reducing costs. We're not farming out as much work. Chris and Bob have been doing a great job with the fire fleet and keeping things up and running. Yep.
Jamie, through you, Madam Mayor, are we doing in-house safeties and all on the fire vehicles now rather than farming that out?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we're still working towards, there's still quite a bit of work to do between Tyson and myself to get us set up to be able to do our own safeties. We pre-safety all our own vehicles before we sublet them out for the safety. And then it goes for its safety. And again, we're at the mercy of that mechanic that does the work. But if they do find that there's other work that needs to be done, we'll bring that and do it in-house.
Okay, thank you.
Jamie, on the second line item there, you show a reduction in insurance for 21. That seems a little odd for the insurance. You would think it'd be going up because last year it was 20. That's on your second line there, account number 70023, down to 18,000, and last year it was 23. I mean, is that right?
That's Councillor Dewey. That's what I would do. Let me look into that exactly, but our insurance stayed about the same as last year. There may have been a better allocation of it. I'll just try and look into that while we're having the meeting.
My thoughts to that, Councillor Dewey, is we have 2 vehicles that were taking off the road last year, and which we're not paying insurance for now, and they'll be going out for tender here right shortly.
Okay, then, and can we go down to education materials? Here again, the same sort of thing, Jamie. You know, this is something that we're looking at with doing more training. You've dropped that down to 5,000 from 9,000 prior year. Is that a good number?
Again, through your Madam Mayor, this was a tricky one because again, it's COVID related. If we're not able to get out and get into the schools and share fire prevention material and activities, then we look at other ways, you know, through social media, through video presentations. So the reduction in money for this year is to emphasis just on that. So is to create presentations to send to the schools or to perform via this type of platform with the schools and our community groups, rather than handing out and ordering materials and circulating materials. So again, it's juggling what we're capable of doing in our current pandemic.
Okay.
But also too, Tom, if you compare actuals instead of the budget number, it's much more in line to what we actually spent.
Yes, yeah. So, and that's, you know, when we looked at what we spent last year, and that's kind of, I'm basing 2021 as the same as last year for some of these areas, just because we don't know where we're going to end up.
Through your worship to Councillor Dewey, that's the exact same reason for insurance, is I just made an adjustment to bring it closer to actual. So I thought you were answering my question, Madam Mayor.
There you go.
Okay.
Those two.
Actually, can I, it's Brent again. Can I ask a quick question on it's actually an insurance related thing, WSIB. And I know that for our staff in the fire department, we have different categories of WSIB, both for our firefighters and then those people for specialized activities. I've noticed that the amount of money that we've set aside in terms of the general hasn't changed from last year, but the amounts that we've paid specifically for, say, fire prevention and safety education and training, we've reduced those, and I'm certainly not complaining because it looks like we're spending less, but I'm just wondering if there was a particular reason why some of those employer WSIB categories have been brought to zero, and the base WSIB is nothing. I'll give you a case in point.
Or are they
on page 12, and the last numbers are 60055. We paid 251 last year. We're not paying anything this year, I think, or we. And then the big number that we normally pay out, which would be on page 14, and that's 60055. It's identical to last year. So I was just wondering if there was any reason for that.
Through your worship to Councillor Cameron, it is an automatic calculation through what I put in FMW when I put the rate in and whatever the salary ends up coming to be. I don't believe there was a change in the volunteer remuneration, and so therefore there shouldn't be a, like in Department 0407. So I'm going to scroll here, Council. WSIB, so that's where that budget number hasn't changed because the salary hasn't changed, even though the actuals over here were a lot, about $3,000 less. I was just trying to bring up the fire department on the other screen overall. In 2020 budget, we had 29,000 and our actuals were 22.
Mm-hmm.
So we could adjust it a little bit, but it depends on what the remuneration comes out, what we're going to end up paying.
Yeah.
Michael, is it not a case that we don't distribute the WSIB into all of the different areas of the budget? Because on page 14, WSIB is in at $23,125, and we paid
Correct.
$19,800 last year.
Yes.
So we just don't distribute it into all of the different sections. Is that not right?
Well, we do have it distributed, maybe not as accurate as it could be. So here in fire service communication, we have a line for it, and there was a budget of 126, but we didn't spend anything. There were positions in there last year that were going to be part-time that were never completed. So that's why the actuals were at 0. So I believe to answer your question initially is that we do distribute it, and it's allocated as a percentage of the salary. So if there's a salary in there, there's going to be WSIB in that part.
Okay.
Does that help?
That helps a lot, actually. I just didn't know whether or not we were amalgamating all of those fund line items into one big line item as opposed to breaking them out. So that does make a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
and no, they shouldn't be. And just to move over my screen. So this is our 2021 budget right now, just for the fire, for WSIB only. And then this was our 2020 budget of 29,000. So we're actually down a few, well, $2,905 versus our actual. So we are still a little bit higher as a buffer.
Okay, so let's keep going. Any other questions before we go to page 13?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have one more question
Okay.
on the screen Michael has open right now. Under line item 71867, vehicle fuels and lubricants, you have in the budget 15,225, but our year-to-date totals for 2020 were only 7,000. Do you anticipate more fire use? Like what's the difference for the $8,000?
The difference, Nikki, is the loss of training last year. And my anticipation for this year and being able to train is why there's the increase. So yeah, the costing is down, and you know, switching to the card lock system has definitely paid off on that front. But again, like I said, we went about 7 months with zero training. So with the hope, we are back training now, and we will continue until we're told we can't. And with the increase of training as well, hopefully with the additional courses, we will see an increase in fuel and in oils.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Back to page 13, Jamie. Or did you finish 12?
Yeah, I think the rest is on page 13 is all pretty much in line with last year.
Jamie, I have a question through you, Madam Mayor, on total electricity. Given the reduction in the electrical rates that the province has been offering, has that not had any positive effect in the amount of that's costing us for electricity at the various stations?
That's
through your worship. Go ahead, Jamie, if you want.
No, go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say, through your worship, to Councillor McDonald, I did reduce the heat and hydro some, but I'm very pessimistic about pricing.
Yeah.
You think it's going to go back up higher than it was before?
I think everything goes up higher than it was before. Just look at gas.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the electricity rates are gone back now to regular pricing.
Right.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else on page 13?
I'm in a budget meeting.
Okay, let's move
Nikki,
to
your
page
microphone is still
14.
on, just in case.
Page 14. Jamie, anything on this page?
Yeah.
So just one thing I wanted just to point out, the M&RF services, you see that I added in only 5 this year and
Yes.
not 15.
If they take Visa debit, yes. Okay.
The reason for that is, and Michael,
Okay,
correct
I'm
me
in
if
the
I'm
middle
wrong.
of
with our each year, so a portion of money that goes into reserves is allocated to M&RF services. Last year's was to build our reserve for M&RF in case we had to call on them to assist with a wildfire. Is a one day, I say a 1 day, 8 hour crew from the M&R would eat up about $10,000. So now we have that buffer there so that if we do get into a situation where we do have to call on the M&RF, we have the reserves there to more or less as an insurance, so that we're not having to come back to council and ask for money.
And through your worship to help Jamie, yes, we do have money being transferred into reserves. I'm just trying to find it here because my shared network's not working. And I believe it is that at least 10, if not $15,000 per year. Wildfire reserve is 10,000. So yes.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, it's Brent again. Just a quick question for Jamie. I'm seeing, I think it's 70522 personal protective equipment. And $500, no change from last year. And again, assuming that the definition of PPE might have some COVID related impact. Do we think 500 is reasonable? Do we think that we can stick to that, or is there going to be pressure for that to increase?
Through you, Madam Mayor, with the personal protective equipment, most of the equipment now is time-stamped to NFP standards, and so it's on a replacement cycle, and I've been trying to move those items to the capital side rather than the operating side. The personal protective equipment, the $500 is I guess like the safety glasses, ear protection type items, the lower cost items that are consumables that would fall under the operating.
Also, too, would we not be
Okay,
able to
so
make
just,
both
sorry.
Michael and, sorry, Brent, beside Michael and Jamie be able to know, we probably could use some of our COVID money to go towards this if need be. Is that correct?
Yes. And we spent
I
$700.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In
I think my
2018.
question, yeah, sorry. I think my question was because again, personal protective equipment that can be interpreted a number of ways. Safety goggles if you're working, or ear protection, as opposed to what we all are used to hearing for PPE. So yeah. The definition of what PPE means is, I think, just wanted to get that clear in my mind.
Yeah,
It's changed over the last year.
Question, Your Worship, to Jamie. Jamie, you didn't comment on the volunteer remuneration. It's count number 60010. We only spent 114,000 there last year, and this year, and we budgeted 185. We're budgeting another 185. I'm just wondering, why did we not spend that whole 185? Because did we go down a number of volunteers last year, and are you expecting to raise that number up this year? I just wondered. That's a $70,000 difference from last year.
Through you, Madam Mayor, again to Councillor Dewey, we had roughly 7 months of no training activities, so that's 7 months of lost remuneration to the volunteers. So Michael and I had the conversation as well as should we look at lowering it? I'd feel more comfortable leaving it as is from last year, because my hope is that we continue our training as we are now, as well as increasing training as we move into the summer.
Okay. Makes sense.
Jamie, one more question. Do you have a plan for recruitment to try and get some, and I'm trying to say this politically correct, some younger blood.
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Not to offend anybody, Everybody's great.
that's one of the biggest hurdles that we face, not even in Central Frontenac, but North Frontenac, and I know South Frontenac as well, is recruitment. We do have 2 firefighters that will be joining South Frontenac's new recruit program, and they'll be going through the recruit training program with South Frontenac starting in May. And we will be looking at another blitz to try and get some blood of various ages. The hope is, and the plan was in the budget was for 10 new recruits this year. So that's our goal.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, Bill here, through you to Jamie. Jamie, looking at that volunteer remuneration line, seeing as that we're all closely coming to the first quarter of the year, do you think that you can actually cram in, and given we don't know where COVID's going to end, do you think you can do that amount of training in say half of the year? Because I don't think you're going to get any release from COVID for at least another couple months. So you're probably dealing with 6 months. If we had to cut this budget somewhere, would this be one line that you would mark?
Through you, Madam Mayor. No, the fire service does have a little bit of a buffer when it comes to training. The fire service, career and volunteer, are permitted to continue training even with restrictions. The direction has been we have to use common sense. We plan our trainings so if we have more than 10 people at a training night, then we break into groups and go to different areas of the halls. Of course, while we're at trainings and while we're at calls, we wear our face masks. So the hope is to continue training the way we are. The new training program that we're looking at to certify our members takes roughly 6 to 7 months to complete, and it's just working to get the commitment from 10 firefighters this year to do that. So
okay, I'm satisfied with that. Okay. I have a question on the next page, but I'm satisfied with the answer there.
Okay,
Okay, are
thanks.
there any other questions on page 14? If not, let's move to 15. And that's the grand total.
No, I have a question there, Madam Mayor, to Jamie in regard to the line about dry hydrants. That's 70370. How many of those do we have installed now, and how many more do we have to go?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So the dry hydrants, we have 1 installed. We have enough supplies in-house now to complete 9 more. And so the monies in this year's budget and next year's budget will be going towards installing those 9 hydrants. It's hard to estimate the cost to install the hydrants. If it's a quick and easy install like the one that we did to start, you're looking at roughly $2,500 to $3,000 for the install. But if we get into an area where we have to do more excavation and more work to satisfy the Conservation Authority, then we could be looking at $10,000 to $15,000 for just a single install. So that's the hard part with projecting the installs. So we'll work with the money that we have and get as many in the ground as we can each year going forward.
Great. Any other questions on capital?
Madam Mayor, it's Brent. I just have 2 quick questions. I know we had a line item 70370 fire station equipment. Last year, we budgeted 25K. We spent about 19. We don't have anything down for that. You can elaborate as to whether or not we're covering that in other line items. But the other question I have is with regard to 7370, a little further down, respiratory protection. We budgeted 12,000 last year. We spent 5,800. We're budgeting 56,400. Are we seeing a lot of equipment coming up for the expiry that you had mentioned in another expenditure, that they're getting near end of life and it's just a factor of things expiring at a certain time?
Through you, Madam Mayor, and to Councillor Cameron, with respect to the fire station equipment, the respiratory protection, the 56,400 was actually the SCBA cascade system that fills our SCBA bottles. The compressor itself started to fail in November. We had a technician come in and look at it, and the longer that it was working, the increased chances it had of putting gases into the air. So at that point, we had to get it replaced. Now in the 56,400, and Michael, and this is where I'll need your help. We had money left over in respiratory protection and emergency response equipment last year to cover the cost of the compressor, and that was to be transferred over to this year because the invoice just arrived.
Yes, so through your worship to Councillor Cameron, this difference here, the 12 to the 5868, would have been part of the unfinished projects at the end of the year that would have been transferred into reserves in 2020 and is being pulled from reserves in 2021, along with other money to match that purchase. So this 56,400 is offset exactly into transfer from reserves.
Okay.
So there's no impact to the tax dollars in this year, just to our reserves. And I don't know, Jamie, if you remember the fire station equipment. The fire station equipment we moved to 2022 because we felt that was one project that we could push off.
Yeah.
Okay, that all makes sense. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Yep.
Welcome.
Okay, any other capital questions?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have two as well.
Okay.
Chief, you have communications equipment of 24,000. You only spent 8,000 last year. What would the difference be there? And then my second question is under building improvements and maintenance. We've budgeted a lot for the past few years, but it never seems to get spent. Is there a plan there for what you would like to spend?
Through you, Madam Mayor. The communication equipment, we did some more testing last year with our radio system because we are still finding, we have the two big towers and it doesn't matter where we put the repeater, we open up other blind spots. So instead of going into a great big multi-million-dollar project, South Frontenac did a test on in-vehicle repeaters. And it was very successful. We've been doing some testing as well. And what it is, it's actually a repeater that goes in the pumpers. And the ground operators that are on the handhelds that normally wouldn't get service will now get service because it bings off the mobile units, which are stronger units, and hits the towers. And it's worked really well. We had a call over on the west end of Arden Road. We were down in a gully. We used the test unit and we could talk to dispatch, no problem at all. So the addition there is to install four of those repeaters, one in each one of our pumpers, so that we have that capability now.
Excellent.
The OPP have that, isn't that correct? In their cruisers?
It's similar. It's a similar theory as what the OPP have. The OPP are digital, I do believe so, but it's the same principle.
Right.
And sorry,
And in re-
Nikki, your second question?
In regards to building improvements and maintenance, 70370, 45,000, and you budgeted 48 last year and you only spent 7. It's been something that's been in the budget the last few years and we don't seem to be spending the money. So is there, like, you have something planned, I guess is my question. Is it going to be spent or is it a surplus?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, we do have plans for improvements to the parking lot at Station 4 in Parham. We started doing some of the repairs with our Public Works Department last summer. We fixed the hole that was developing in the parking lot in front of the bays. And we withheld doing any further work on that area until this spring, just to see, to make sure the parking lot stayed and there was no further issues. So we do have plans on finishing that parking lot and the entrance, removing the trees and doing groundwork to that area. There is money there as well for Station 1 to finish renovations there.
Jamie, we have apparatus floor drains
Yes,
are in there as well.
yeah. So
And-
apparatus floor drains at Station 1 and at Station 3, and painting at Station 2.
Okay.
We also, if I can add to that, please, there's 40,257 coming from reserves from last year. So we were actually only raising 4,700 this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on capital? Okay, if not, we're at the total fire service is $1,321,161 compared to expenditures of $1,028,724 last year, but budget of $1311,727. Okay. If there's no other questions for Jamie, and if there are questions, please write them down. Our next budget meeting will start with answering any questions on the previous departments that we've talked about. So let's go to, is it building services next, Michael?
We're going to go to Public Works.
Public Works,
So
okay,
that's on page 32.
page 32. Moving right along.
And Jamie will be able to go, and now Jamie, you'll be able to go to work.
There you go.
Well, I'm good for a while, so. But yeah, no, I'm gonna check out. I have another meeting that I have to go to. I said I'd call them when I was done here. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Okay,
Jamie.
Thank you. All right, Tyson is on the hot seat now. It's just a warm seat. Jamie's actually warmed it up for you, Tyson.
When did he go? I didn't.
He's there
He left
at
us.
the bottom for me.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
no, I see him now.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Council, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to start by thanking everybody for coming, and thank you, Michael, for all your hard work so far.
Likewise.
Okay, I guess we'll do the same as with fire, Tyson. Just sort of hit the high spots, or if council have specific questions on a specific line item on page 32.
Madam Mayor, if I can just make a general statement first, council will see that the salaries are budgeted about the same and the actuals are quite different. That's still something I wasn't able to get to last year. We budget a certain way in the FMW, but somehow the import is not coming across. All the salaries are fine across the different departments, but you'll see different lines between the garages and whatnot.
Okay,
And same with benefits.
okay. So when we compare the actuals to the budget, there is a reason that there's such a wide range.
Correct, yes, and it's, Michael needs to get button gear.
Okay, that's good to know. That saves a lot of questions and the same answer coming up.
Yes.
Okay. Wow, insurance is high, eh? Is our insurance actually actual, Michael? Like the numbers are in for this year?
The numbers are always in fairly early, yes. The reason between the budget and the actuals here is a couple deductibles, thank you, myself, I guess apparently, but deductibles that you don't know. I was on a presentation earlier today talking about that and joint and several liability, but it's a precautionary to have them in there. Seems inevitable.
Right. Okay. So nothing on page 32. We will go to page 33. Okay. Anything here?
Madam Mayor,
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, it's Brent. I do have a couple of questions. And thank you, Michael, for the previous, because I had a question on that page and you took care of it with your statement. So I'm down one. I have a question about line item 70515, health and safety. And we're budgeting the same amount as last year, 10,000, but our actuals were only about 1,900 last year. And I'm just wondering about, are we still budgeting 10,000 because we think last year was an outlier and it's going to go back to a previous pattern? The second question I have, I believe it was 76106, vehicle licenses. We spent 608 last year. We're budgeting 34,000. So I've got a question there.
Okay, Tyson.
Tyson, do you want me to go at it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can answer the first one easily. Health and safety, since the public works employees, a lot of their training is really hands-on in a truck with a instructor. We had to miss a lot of that due to COVID. We're hopeful that we can get back into those trucks and get back into the parking lots person to person and do that training next year. That's why we left that high. Michael, I hope you can explain the vehicle licensing.
Yeah, so through your Madam Mayor to Councillor Cameron, we've been trying to get this on an appropriate line. It's historically always gone to the miscellaneous expenses, but miscellaneous is such a bad description that I had just never gotten around to it. And then when we finally added it, we didn't put the budget there. So then the actual went somewhere else. So now we're on the budget line. In 2021, you'll see actuals on that line.
So the miscellaneous is license.
The vehicle licenses were going to that line, yes.
Right.
And that's why the actuals are 608 on the one line. Go ahead.
I assume that almost takes into account the difference on miscellaneous just below it. You know, you could almost swap those numbers out and see the difference. So that if that's the case, that does make sense.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, any other questions on page 33?
I have two as well, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
I had three, but Brent just asked one of them. Under engineering, Tyson, you have 20,000 again budgeted. You only spent 6. With less capital projects, are you anticipating as much engineering being needed? And then my second question, oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I'll let you ask all your questions first.
Okay, and my second question is about fuel and lubes. You budgeted 308, almost 309,000. You only spent 235. What's the anticipation? Just the increase in the fuel cost?
Is that the last question, Nikki?
Yeah, that's the last question. Thank you.
Michael, sorry, I'll do engineering first. So the engineering sometimes can include, even though we're budgeting for 2021, it's sometimes to help me get consultants and surveyors and design done for the next year, 2022. So even though we don't have a lot of capital projects in 2021 happening because of the low budget, we're really hopeful that we can do some more in-house stuff in 2022. And I hope to be able to get the design on the shelf for that. There's also the more design work to do on Westport Road, because even though we won't be able to do that project this year, I'd like to have that on the shelf in case we apply for a grant.
Okay, perfect.
When it comes
So
to
through your
fuel,
worship,
so go ahead, Michael.
I thought you were going to want me to jump in, Tyson. Sorry. So through your worship, Councillor Gowdy, the fuel did go up by $18,000 per an inflation calculation that we have. If Tyson thinks that's appropriate, we can leave it at that. If not, that's why it's up, is And then I would be concerned about the prices, especially the way they've jumped the last couple of weeks. Such a fluctuating factor again.
Through you,
Okay.
Madam Mayor, it is a fluctuating factor for sure. I think it's worth taking a closer look at after the meeting, Michael, with you and I, especially now that we're tracking it better between us and fire.
Sounds good. Are you bringing the food?
Oh, no, I meant after the meeting as in maybe next week.
Yeah, not after doing all these numbers today. Okay, and the next section is basically per vehicle.
Just,
Go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to ask a question with regard, and I've asked this before, but I know Michael's got this new software coming out, and when I look at all the maintenance costs for these various vehicles, I know I've asked with regards to having these vehicles on a replacement schedule, so we could take a look at them, because some of these dollars we're spending on some of these vehicles, like, I don't know, they doesn't look like they're old and we're putting a lot of money in them. How soon will we be able to get a report that shows we've got XYZ vehicle and it's going to be replaced in such and such time, so you can compare some of these repairs to that vehicle?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think Michael and I's goal is to have those kind of reports within the next couple of years. But Tom, can you give me an example of one of the vehicles you think is really high on maintenance?
Okay, well, let's just go down to this one here. Just this, we spent 40,000 on it this year, and we're budgeting another 16. It's actually on line item.
Number 14.
At number, yeah, 9314. It's 71868. It's a Sterling 2T, whatever that is.
Is that a tractor?
Is that
Well,
not the
that's
insurance one?
That's our vehicle that was, it should have been a write-off. Insurance wanted to put a new motor in it. The new motor cost X amount of dollars, and now the frame is bent too, which they didn't catch in the initial inspection. So we're going back to the insurance company to try to get them to, first of all, try to get them to write it off. Unfortunately, they're probably going to try to want to replace the frame as well, but we don't have answers on that yet. So that's an outlier, Tom.
Oh, okay.
So just to add that, we did get $24,000, sorry, from the insurance to offset that 40.
That's
Okay.
right. And now it's looking like another 20 or 30 or 40 to possibly repair this frame if they do decide to go ahead and fix it.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to go through any more of these, but that is fine.
But no, Tom, I can see where you're going with the high cost of maintenance. And I know when it comes to some of the tandems, you've got $10,000, $12,000, $16,000. We've got to keep in mind a tire for each of those vehicles can be $300 to $500. So just tire replacement alone every year adds up. But those numbers are going to go down. We're on a 10-year plan to buy a tandem every year to try to get all of our tandems to be less than 9-10 years old. So we do hope to see those maintenance costs going down.
Okay. Page
Madam Mayor, may I go down a rabbit hole for a second?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so this is the citywide software that we use, and this is each of the vehicles. It doesn't come across as nice as I would like, but it does give us the years that it goes by. So Tyson and I would be using this. It's just not as professional looking as we would like. I'd like a prettier picture, and you can see the backlog here, and that's why Tyson's continuing to buy vehicles for Public Works. There's my rabbit hole.
I'd like the
Madam-
lettering to be darker.
Madam Mary, Bill here to Tyson. Tyson, do you find that your software will be able to put together a history where you're actually comparing different models of, say, tandem trucks to see which one of those or which type of fleet is giving you the least amount of maintenance cost over, say, a 10-year span? And so we would probably support going to that model for the future. Are we doing any studies in that area?
We've got the capabilities to do those studies, Bill, and it's actually easy because we run mostly international trucks, so it'll be easy to see an outlier with a different brand. That's definitely one of the items that you can put into the asset manager. So Michael and I can make a note to try to generate some kind of a report like that.
Well, and if I can add to that, that's exactly why we were putting forward the asset manager engineer position, because finance has enough time to put the assets in for the auditors. you have, Tyson's right, the capabilities to track the information for fuel, for repairs, and then make a more educated decision, which ones are costing you more, operational expenses overall, not just repairs. And finance just can't get to it, and I'm pretty sure Public Works can't either right now.
Michael, are we to the point, through you, Madam Mayor, are we to the point where we're able to get fleet insurance for our public works vehicles?
Through your worship, Councillor McDonald, I'm not exactly sure what you mean. We have insurance right now on our fleet, but is there a different special insurance that I'm not aware of?
I would think that you would be able to negotiate depending on the number of vehicles that you're actually getting coverage. You get some of the larger transportation companies when they're in hundreds and thousands of vehicles, some of them actual fact actually insure themselves, but you might be able to, I don't know whether it's available to municipal because you have so many different drivers, but it's something I'm just wondering if it's available to municipalities. It's something you might want to look at.
Through your worship to Councillor McDonald, sorry. I will check with our Aon representative, but we are still, just a reminder, saving $170,000 from when we went out to the insurance RFP 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so on page 34, total roads equipment maintenance is 273. We actually spent 242 and we budgeted last year for 259.3, so we're very close. Any other questions on the vehicle maintenance on page 34? Okay, let's start looking at garages then, and it starts on page 230 or page 34. The salaries are again posted to the different garages, I believe, Michael?
They are, and I really have to go through this with Tyson as well and trying to allocate better in the budget to more reality. Just make the two systems match. There's my high level answer.
Okay, we'll go to page 35.
Right.
Any questions on this page? These are standard costs for each of the garages. And again, salaries tends to bring that number up in each of them. Any questions on page 35? Hearing none, we're going to go to page 36. So we're bridges and culverts.
I'd like to point out on page, through you, Madam Mayor, I'd like to point out on page 36, the inflation of culvert purchases. There's once a culvert gets to be over 3 meters, it becomes a bridge structure, but there's some very large, like 2-meter culverts, 2 or 3 of them that need to be replaced this year. That's why that went up so expensive, 15 grand. There's some large culverts need to be replaced.
Okay. Okay. Any questions on that page?
Also, I think I'll also point out that the label under hardtop maintenance, the label is catch basin, but that's actually where we have all of our underground infrastructure maintenance. I've put it up by 12,000 to get to cover the cost of more cleaning of the new pipe network. The new pipe network will take a quick cleaning. I'm hoping $1,300, but we're gonna move to the next hamlet and try to do get into a better program of keeping underground infrastructure clean. And that also covers the cost if we have to send a camera truck in to check out issues underground in the pipe. So that's why that went up.
Excellent.
And Tyson, on the hot mix, going down that list, you spent 3,487 and we budgeted 40 last year. We're budgeting another 40. Like, I'm just wondering, do you have anything to say about that item?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the hot mix was kept high last year. One of our dump trucks that was surplus had an edger box on it. That's where you do the little strip of asphalt along the edge to preserve the edge of the roadway. We went a year without having one. When I moved in here, we didn't have one. We have budgeted in capital projects by new edger box, so we want to keep that hot mix up high and then we won't use much cold mix. We'll keep that hot mix up high so we can do some edging this summer.
And Tyson, the next line, the cold mix, I'm wondering if maybe we put some to that line instead of, or we just manually offset it in our heads as a total 90,000 budget, we'd be at about 89 between the two, right below that. You can see it on screen. I'm moving the mouse.
I'm looking at it too, Michael. I'm just not sure what you're saying, because cold mix has to stay high because we've kind of unofficially scratched off Zealand Road and some other roads, and they're going to take a lot of cold mix this summer to maintain.
So where I'm going is Councillor Dewey was asking, we only spent 3,500 actuals in 2020 for hot mix, but we budgeted 40. If you look at cold mix, it's 50. So there's a total of 90,000 budget there. And the actuals between the two are about 89,000.
Yeah,
so I'd say we're right on budget.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying now. We went way over on cold mix because we weren't using hot mix. I see what you're saying.
Madam Mayor, it's Brent. Can I just ask a quick question? Because I know we're not getting into the 5-year, and you had already referenced that Westport Road was due for major work in 2022. So I'm just wondering, while we're talking about this, I'm assuming when you mentioned Zealand Road, I'm even though I know we're going to do some major work on Westport Road next year, and it definitely needs it, but I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity, not getting too off track, but since we're on this topic about whether or not Westport Road's going to be getting some asphalt, with hot mix, cold mix, you're the expert, you'll determine which would be more appropriate, but in the interim to get us to the reconstruction.
Oh, so it's through you, Madam Mayor. From what I understand, Brent's asking how we're going to maintain Westport Road this year and how much it's going to cost. It cost us a lot this summer to maintain it with hot mix, but we didn't have an edger box, and so we were just filling potholes. There's sections where there's lots of potholes in a row that we're going to be able to do strips of hot mix with this edger box, and that's part of the reason why we still need that $40,000 in hot mix. There's a few roads like that where rather than going and replacing little potholes, we're going to be able to do strips of asphalt here and there. And that should save some costs and save some time. But to answer your question, Brent, it's going to be one more year of high costs of hot and cold mix on that road.
Thank you.
Anything else on page 36?
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Tyson, so I don't see the Henderson Road or Arden Road on anything. What's up with that?
No, we got to get to that, Cindy.
Okay.
It's further along.
I only have till 3, so let's keep moving then.
Okay, we're on page 36. No other questions on 36? Let's go to 37. All right. Is there anything here?
Madam Mayor, contracted services, it says definable. We have 300,000. We spent 118,000. Can I get a note of explanation there from Tyson?
Through you, Madam Mayor. First of all, Michael, I think that should be relabeled so it's easier for council to understand that that's our contracted plow services, because I've been asked that question quite a few times. 300,000. I would be curious to pull back up the 3-year average, but we left that high because it's been a fairly easy winter for our contractors. They haven't been called out a lot. We've been on the hard top a lot because of little light dustings of snow and early at the start of the year, early morning frost coming through the hard top, but the contractors do our back roads for us and we haven't used them a whole heck of a lot for contracted services. Now, there's also, you'll see in the year-to-date actuals, there's still a large outstanding bill from our contractor that I'm guessing will be 50, 60 grand to add to that 181. Michael and I discussed that yesterday, I believe.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything under safety devices?
One more, friend, one more, on winter control.
Yeah.
Here again, Tyson, we spent 25,000. We budgeted 80 last year. We're budgeting 80 this year. What do you throw into that winter control? Because obviously we're not spending the money.
Tom, that's something I am gonna have to look into through you, Madam Mayor, because last I discussed with Steve, my understanding was that was for blades for our plows. And I thought we were a lot closer to our budget because the last time we placed an order, I told him to be careful. So I'm wondering if something got charged to the wrong line. I think Michael and I need to follow up on that because I know the average has been fairly consistent with about 75 grand worth of blades.
Okay.
Yeah. So that number may be off or included someplace else.
Yeah, I think I need to follow up with Michael on that
Okay,
before the next meeting.
all right.
You go down to, we're still on that same page.
Yep.
Tyson, you go down to two things here. They're right together, the sand and the salt. I'm at, you got
Yep,
no
we got it,
expense,
Tom.
we're no expense for sand. And we're budgeting 50, and the same thing with salt. We only spent 8. Is that right?
No, it's through you, Madam Mayor. It's another really confusing part of our budget. It was split up before my time. It was split up to try to track the sand and salt from just 38 operations alone. You'll notice, Tom, above that it says Road 38 operations expense.
Yep.
All the what we do is we charge it all to one account, and I have to go back. I believe it's in winter maintenance on maybe the next page, or maybe we went by it, but we charge it all to one account, and then Michael has to do a journal entry at the end after we calculate what percentage we assume was used for Road 38.
Okay.
So that's it's a little difficult.
Mayor,
because the winter doesn't end until March, and the budget we're trying to work on the budget here in February.
That's okay, we got last March. Brent, did you have a
Madam
question?
Mayor, it's Brent. Yeah. Yeah, just a quick one. It's with regard to just a little above where Tom was, 71,895 guardrails. I know our expenses up, and maybe Tyson, you can give a little background. It's my understanding that for guardrails, the provincial government changed the standard, and the ones that are simply the posts with the cables connected through, that the provincial government is requiring us to phase those out and go for the hard metal ones. Now, I might not have that right, so you can correct me if you feel I need to be corrected on that. But I'm just wondering, is that going to drive the cost this year and in subsequent years?
Through you, Madam Mayor, my understanding of the legislation is that if it's post and wire right now and it gets damaged, it can be replaced with post and wire. If you're adding a new guardrail, it's got to be steel beam. So if I'm wrong on that and legislation has changed, which I'll definitely look into, that guardrail, the cost of guardrail repairs will quadruple. Steel beam guardrail, each system you install, no matter how long it is, the attenuators alone at the start and end are $9 grand.
Wow. Does that, I suppose that would cover all the municipalities that could break everybody?
Well, yes, and as far as I know, we're allowed to still replace wooden posts with wooden posts.
Good.
But
Let's
like you
hope we
see,
keep it
like
that
you
way.
saw on Crow, the last time I looked at this legislation was when I first started, and we were finishing off Crow Lake Road. We had those really dangerous guardrails on the edge of Crow Lake Road. I learned then that they had to be steel beam. If there were guardrails there before that were wood, we could have replaced them with wood.
Okay. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions on page 37?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Tyson,
Okay.
you have down here at the bottom, capital projects, you have $2,000 for a mechanic's vehicle. Not to be smart or anything like that, but $2,000?
So through you, Madam Mayor, that in initial discussions about the budget between Jamie and I and Kathy, we wanted to buy our new mechanic a decent vehicle to drive that was set up with an air compressor and a welder and everything, which brand new would probably cost about $200,000. To try to help out, what we did was take an old truck with 200,000 kilometers on it. We did little bit of work to it and bought a used cab and a new compressor and some toolboxes. And between fire has 2,000 set aside and I have 2,000 aside, for $4,000, we were able to get them on the road temporarily. We're hoping that lasts for a couple of years. We just use the same account line. So that probably should just, Michael may say that instead of a capital project, that should probably just be pushed into the operating budget.
Okay, thank you so much.
Probably.
But if you want to buy us a new vehicle, I'm all for that.
You and me both.
$2,000 is good.
Okay.
Okay, page 38. Okay. Capital projects. Here we go. We're on the road part. Now, Cindy, your question.
Tyson, I don't see anything for my area. What's up?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Cindy, if you'll notice on the 2020 budget, there's $1.2 million spent in your area budgeted. It came in cheaper than that, but and there was an additional 125 spent in preservation from savings in that one project.
Well, I know your guys are bringing like dump truck loads of fill for the north end of the Henderson Road up here. So I don't know what is that your plan, just to keep filling the road? It's not really potholes, the whole thing's gone. So I'm just wondering what your plan is for that area of the road.
It's in the 1 to 5 year capital plan, and if I could do it all, and that's in the road needs study, it falls into the 1 to 5 year category. And if I could do it all in 2021, I would, Cindy.
Well, can you put it on the back burner for next year?
It's definitely in the construction plan.
All right.
And I've already sent him an email. That goes with the village of Arden too, right? Because that's terrible through there.
Well, it's even worse at the north end of the Henderson Road. It's wild.
Okay, so
Tyson, some of your decisions in regard to what roads need to be repaired, I would assume that you're taking the average daily traffic into consideration in doing those, because some of these projects you do have on the for example, the Ardoch Road, that's the main road out of North Frontenac coming down, and we've got a million complaints about it. But the average daily traffic compared to between that and say the Henderson Road going up to Harlow, there'd be a higher traffic count on the Ardoch Road, would there not?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can.
Go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can check I don't have the average daily traffic memorized for each road, but the road needs study is based off, in 2019, we paid for the road needs study. It was based, a big part of that formula was average annual daily traffic. We understand that road needs study wasn't perfect, and that's why we bought a speed sign, which we rotated through the township to update our own average annual daily traffic without having to pay another 15 grand for a study. So to answer your question, Bill, yes, average annual daily traffic is definitely taken into consideration.
Right, I understand. Thank you.
So what I'd like to say is that people that are going up north too, all of them don't take the Ardoch Road. What they do is they come down and they take the Henderson Road up through when they're going to Cashawacamac or Bon Echo or those ones. And the people from Toronto, same thing. They seem to go, and the Henderson Road is a detour. If there's a accident on 7, they use that as a detour to come up around and come back down to Kildare. So just so you know, it's a busy road.
That's good. Okay, so what we've got here is.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have a question as well. I was just waiting for.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Tyson, my question is, you had said something about not doing Zealand Road, but you have $500,000 budgeted for Zealand Road. Could you explain that? And just to follow, one quick follow-up, if we're going to follow roads need studies and road counts, Westport Road was #1 in the road study and had the highest travel count, but it's being put off for another year. But my question was Zealand Road, please, and thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I agree, Nikki. Westport Road's getting bad. We had to make a judgment call, and out of the roads on the road needs study, even though it was the highest, it's one that we think we can preserve. There's some roads you have to let go for a little while to be able to get your value out of them, and we believe that we can affordably repair it for 1 more year. The Zealand Road, I think this may be question for Michael, as I had already removed that from in our last meeting. I had removed any costs from Zealand, and we jacked up the operating budget a little bit to cover that. There was initial discussions about treating it like Price Road and just pulverizing it, leaving it gravel. But we added up the cost of calcium and grading on that road, and it made more sense for us to patch it for another year as well. So there should not be a capital. There should not be $500,000 set aside for Zealand. Maybe that got left in. Michael, do you know why that was left in there?
Through your worship to Councillor Gowdy and Tyson, I was going to ask you if I was supposed to pull that one out as well, because I moved Westport Road over to 2022. And my thoughts there, Councillor Gowdy, is hopefully that with a grant, we might be able to achieve that a little bit better. As a $2.2 million project, obviously it wasn't, it was a lot more expensive than some of the other ones.
Oh, I agree. It's been, as I understand, he's to keep it for another year, but it's gone beyond, as we all know, Westport Road is beyond just a patch there.
Yeah. And I think Michael Tyson's correct. I think we were just taking, all of Zealand out at this point. He's going to do some other work with it. Something similar.
And that's fine. I can move it over or put a certain dollar amount. I'll talk to Tyson after.
Sure.
And Tyson, I certainly noticed the potholes last year on the motorbikes on Westport Road. So yeah.
There's a couple here, Michael, that we'll take a look at, like the single surface treatment. That was something that was, I think, maybe slipped in from last year. That was removed in our last meeting. There is the Hampton Road. I don't know if that should even show up here. The Hampton Road, Tryon Road, that was set aside for possibly joint work with the county at Hampton Crossing for the trail. That money's from a grant.
That was done.
Yeah.
But that was done, wasn't it?
So we received $50,000 from the county. This is the amount of money that's left. If we're not doing something with it, we need to give it back to them. So
I've met with county representatives and did the preliminary planning for a project 38 in Hampton where the trail crosses. And they're interested, but they couldn't make it happen this year. They couldn't make that project happen this year, and they couldn't raise enough money on their end to go forward with it in this year.
So we have to give that back?
Well, it's $50,000 that came through the OCIF formula, and every year I have to report on it. And so if we're not using it, I honestly, selfishly don't want to do the report every year, just saying that we've never used money. So I feel like if we're not using it for the project that was intended, yes, we need to give it back.
So there may be something else that we could do in that area with that money. Or does it have to be specifically, what was it, hardtop?
Well, it has to be for those roads.
Okay, well, let's leave this section for you guys to go back in and tidy it up before our next budget meeting.
And I just, ask a question with regards to the Sherbet Lake Village project. Like that, there's two line items there. Line item 70370, and if you go on down to 70370, there's another line item, same number. There's one that's got you're budgeting $427,000 this year, and we spent last year we spent $2 million. And if you go down to the other item, we got $663,000 last year, and then we didn't spend it. Is that those two seem to be, they should be together somehow. I don't understand it.
So I'll answer that one through your worship to Councillor Dewey, sorry. We put it in two separate lines because this was a major grant. In order to weed through 10 billion pages of line items, we allocated it to the different parts because the underground infrastructure for Sherbet Lake Village project did not get covered. So that's the difference between those two lines, or why they're separated, to make it easier for us in reporting the grant.
So
also,
okay, sorry.
Mayor, also, there's still some money set aside. Michael, you can maybe speak to how much. We just received an email this week confirming it, but there's a large chunk set aside for 2021 for the holdback, for the release of the holdback for the warranty period. And I know the holdback just reduced from 10% to 2.5%. So that will be edited soon in here as well.
So with the numbers that are here, the 2.1 and the 557, those holdbacks are in those numbers currently. If the holdbacks or what we end up paying out is any different, that will be reflected in 2021. But those holdbacks are in these numbers as of the end of the calendar year.
And then the 427 that we're talking, what's left to be spent out of that?
Or
Like,
to
what
be
do we-
That's the
done.
money that was the money that was left of the whole project for whatever other work that needs to be done.
Okay,
right.
but basically are we not finished with that project yet?
We're
So, I mean,
83%.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the
So that-
question. What needs to be done?
I'll speak to that, Michael. Just trying to be careful the way I word this. The government funded us for this project, and we've got the majority of the work completed and still some money left over. And so we're saying the project's 83% complete to make sure in 2021 there's not any more work that could be done with that money.
So we could end up with a bit of money from that 427,000 at the end of the day.
That's right.
If we do have any money left over,
We gotta
Yeah.
send it
we
back.
can't use it for anything. Well, we won't get it. We won't get reimbursed.
We won't get
Like it's
reimbursed.
for that project only.
That's right. So if we
Okay.
don't spend that 400 and something, then yeah, we don't get it. So, I mean, that's why I said to Tyson, it's probably a good idea to having some of that to know we get through this winter with some of the sidewalks, and there's certainly been water laying along
That's
on
right.
the Elizabeth Street that'd give him an opportunity to look at that a little closer, because maybe there'll have to be some repairs or things like that that we might be able to use that money from.
And I was thinking more along the lines of completing more landscaping, streetscaping, stuff like that, that we have to, Michael and I will carefully see what can be covered by the grant, but there's a large chunk of money there that I don't really want to pass back right away.
So I've scrolled down
I
to the
got-
bottom of page 39 because this is the offsetting revenue. So even though it's up above in 427,000 expense, it's 420 down here offsetting revenue.
Yeah, because we had part of this not covered by the grant. So that's what I'm saying. That somehow or other, there might be some money at the end of the day that, because in that 427, obviously we had, according to this, we put in 663,000 not covered from the grant last year, right?
Yeah, so
Right.
up above, I put the full, sorry,
Go ahead.
Tyson, go ahead.
557,000 actually.
So through you, Madam Mayor, there is money left over from the Sharp Lake Village project not covered by the grant. And I have requested before that goes directly into reserves. I want to set aside some for what I requested last year. When I paid for the our portion of the downtown revitalization grant, I used that money, the money that I saved in the infrastructure project. And I've requested to do that again to pay for our portion if we get the implementation grant. So there's money set aside there for that I'm hopeful that we're going to use as well.
Okay. All right, thanks, Tyson.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, any other questions on this page?
So through you, Madam Mayor, then the number 3,63126 goes down to 284,856. If we're removing the Zealand Road, that's $500,000 out of there. So that'll bring it down to 284.
Well, let's leave the guys to figure that one out because they maybe have already designated that for someplace else.
Okay.
Is that maybe possible, Michael and Tyson?
Well, I would say that any money that we save just reduces the amount of the loan that we take out.
Or
That's
we could do,
my first thought.
or we could do some other work on another road.
Correct.
That's correct. Mhm.
Okay.
Okay,
I think something that, through you, Madam Mayor, something that I'm surprised wasn't touched on and the question was the 820,000 for the pavement preservation program. That's something that I requested last year as well that got slashed. And that is for trying to preserve some of our hardtop that's still in that range of it can be saved. So our thoughts on that were to try to do 1/5, get in a 5-year plan to try to do 1/5 of Road 38 with a scratch coat and micro surface similar to what was done in Verona, and another similar project on the Wagerville Road as well to try to preserve the hardtop that still is good.
You know, years ago, we had that kind of a program and it saved us millions of dollars because it was a steady movement of covering these roads before they got like Zealand Road.
I tried hard and I was able to spend 125 last year at the south end of Arden. And I thank council for not, for letting me continue forward with this year's pavement preservation program, because I really am trying to sell that to our council and to the community.
I'd like you to bring back a report of the roads that you've worked on with this money. Okay,
Absolutely.
nobody's objecting to it, so it stays in
No.
for now.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
Okay, let's move to page 39.
Oh, quickly, Madam Mayor.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, the 100,000, Tyson, that you have budgeted for building upgrade, Public Works, building upgrades, garage upgrades. Again, you didn't use it last year. You do have a plan. You are gonna do something this year, or is that something that could be a scratch to alleviate maybe more pavement preservation?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's something that absolutely could be a scratch if we had to. We do have a plan for 2021. We've got quotes already for each garage to get an upgrade to the lunchroom, so our workers have a cleaner, safer area to eat lunch and use the washroom. But it isn't. We are functioning right now, and it is safe. So it's something that could be scratched if it had to. But if I recall correctly, it was council that was pushing this last year, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's very important for employee morale, and I would not like to see that pulled out. I feel very strongly that we need to do that. It's definitely a positive thing for the employee, and I really think we need to do it, Tyson.
I agree, Tom. Through Madam Mayor, employee morale is up right now, especially with our road staff and waste management. So I agree with Tom.
Good.
Through your worship, the council, if it were to be scratched, it would have a zero impact on the budget. It's coming out of reserves.
Right.
Okay. So as soon as we get through this budget, we'll do an RFP to get somebody in there to do them.
For sure.
Okay, page 39, unless there's more questions on 38. Okay, 39. Equipment.
This is all the non-fund stuff, your worship, the loans.
Right.
Just to remind council, the pulverization loan we pulled from reserves to save a little bit of money borrowing from ourselves. So that's why you see zero actuals there. This is the loan that I was talking about. I did just throw it under Public Works. It wasn't necessarily all for Public Works, so that could be reallocated. But that was just the quickest spot to throw it the other day.
That's the 3,400,000.
Yes, just to be fair to Public Works.
And what was that for?
It's an overall loan to make the budget down to an acceptable levy amount, or at least a presentable acceptable levy amount, to get all the capital projects done. More so, it's it's capital that's, I mean, obviously I already mentioned operating is up about 469,000 over last year, and capital would have been up about 3.2 million over last year if we had not put this loan in.
Okay. So we budgeted that last year and we're bringing it forward again this year.
So the 3.4, no, so this, sorry, I put the header column back up here. In 2020 budget, we did not have this loan in there. It is a new loan. Sorry, I can try and make it bigger. I see you squinting.
No, I see it now. 21 versus 20, okay. So what you're saying then is we are going to borrow $3,400,000 to offset this budget.
To offset this budget, yes, and with a payback period of 10 years because, oh gosh, I think, yeah, it was about $350,000-$60,000 payback over the 10-year period. Loan rate, I think, would be 1.7 right now. I'd have to double check that, but it's not much different than what we're getting in the bank right now, and it's a big enough loan that we can't borrow this from our reserves.
Michael, by borrowing from this, what kind of flexibility do we have left?
Flexibility in our loans? technically, we still would have about 50%. But if I had ever got around to a debt policy, my recommendation would be to not go over 50% unless it's a project that can pay back within 3 to 5 years. So more of a strategic loan. And our next loans come up, the influential ones end in 2023. So we would have 2022, 2023, where we would not pull out another loan. Ideally, we will have new assessment from construction. Obviously, the building department's increasing that for us. Thank you. And we hopefully will have phase-in assessment to potentially rely on as well, but that's not guaranteed right now. So it puts us in a tighter spot. Again, I wouldn't borrow for the next 2 years at least, be in 2022 and 2023, and we could pull minimal from our reserves in 2022 and 2023.
Right.
So
Okay. Any other questions on page 39?
we still have the OCIF Formula Fund grant coming in at 386,000, just to point that out to council. I wasn't sure if we were going to have that this year, so I am very thankful for that. And I know council saw our asset management presentation the other night, and we need the grants. We need support from the other levels of government, and we are getting it. I'm not saying we're not getting it. It's just, there's a lot of expenses to try and cover, as Tyson's seeing.
Yeah. Okay, that is it for public works, other than street lighting, which is public works, I guess, eh? And waste
Yes.
management.
And waste.
So let's go to page 40. Okay. Street lighting is pretty basic. Any questions or comments on the waste disposal revenue?
I'll just comment that through Madam Mayor, waste disposal expenses will be looked at closely this year between all the municipalities in the county. The Kingston KARC is definitely more expensive than Belleville, and we finally got our fourth quarter invoicing, which just like we were worried about, was more expensive than the other 3 quarters when they did the reconciliation. So we'll be between Darwin and South Frontenac, and I will be closely looking at joint opportunities to transition into something a little more cost effective.
Tyson, Bill here, through Madam Mayor. Is our transportation cost in relation to transporting the recyclables, is that making up the difference?
I'm sorry, what are you asking, Bill? If it's
the cost of transporting the material to Kingston rather than going to where were you going before, Napanee? We're going to save money by doing it this way. Is it making up for the lost revenue that we might have experienced?
It's not quite this point, but with the possibility of partnering with other townships and sharing some of the transportation costs and hauling and equipment sharing, it's a possibility that we can reduce that.
Okay, any questions on page 40?
Madam Mayor, it's Brent. I was looking at one line where we don't have anything put in right now, landfill closure liability. I'm just wondering if, and it's sort of connected to this line item. Because of COVID, we have a lot of people who would normally only be here 2 or 3 months of the year, and they're staying much longer, which means they're generating more waste. And of course, we've talked about the construction starts and more houses being built in the township, but that also generates more waste. And that's going to have an impact on the lifespan of our facilities. So I'm wondering if there is some mind, not necessarily in this particular budget, but going forward, setting aside some money, because I think that the lifespan on our facilities is going to be greatly reduced with the increase in population and a lot of people opting to stay longer when they're in the township.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Go ahead, Michael.
I'm just trying to look up the information as well, but through your worship to Councillor Cameron, we are putting money aside. We started about 3 or 4 years ago. There is an actual credit here on the expense line, and assuming my calculation was correct from the information that the KBM, I think it is, Tyson, gave to me, the liability is actually $7,600 less, because I think the one-way site was potentially going a few more years. But so I do a calculation every year based on the information that they give me, which would take into account usage and whatnot. And maybe Tyson can expand on that. But yes, we do also put money aside each year, and I'm just trying to find that. Well, maybe Tyson answers a little more detailed.
The truck coming now.
Sorry, did somebody else have a question too? I heard someone else.
No,
So we put in $120,000 into reserves each year right now for future landfill obligations, and we're at a balance of 360 at the end of 2020.
okay. That answer your question, Brent? Yeah, okay. Page 41.
Sorry, yeah, it does answer my question. Thank you.
Okay. Page 41. Looks pretty basic. Any questions or comments there?
Are we, through you, Madam Mayor, are we still spending or planning to spend $54,000 on Wilkinson closed site?
Which line are you looking at, Bill?
I'm just looking at the bottom on the expenses under Wilkinson expenses.
Bill, I think you might be looking under row 38.
I think you're looking under.
Yeah,
Road 38.
look up the next
Okay,
line,
all right. Yep,
3520.
That's
Yeah.
right. I looked at the big number, my
Through you,
glass.
Madam Mayor. No, we will not be spending that much on Wilkinson.
Okay, I see 3,500. That's fine. That makes my
Okay.
heart rate go down.
Page 42. Again, pretty basic stuff for the waste disposal sites. Any comment or questions there? Page 43. We got the total waste management expenses of 332,000. We budgeted 327 last year and we spent 324. So pretty much in line with the actuals.
Through you, Madam Mayor, my comment to everyone is that in 2021, we're going to work hard with the bylaws to try to create more commercial waste diversion. We've got a lot of businesses bringing in construction debris, which is driving up the cost of wood grinding, and also taking up a lot of capacity. And our bylaws don't support us to divert that commercial waste and to keep the local businesses away. Even the local businesses all recycling in there. We're going to strive to try to divert that waste to get companies to pick it up right at their businesses and haul it to bigger plants, bigger cities. So that's our
Right.
goal for 2021.
Good.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, through you.
Go ahead, Sherry.
Tyson, just in concern in regards to potentially the close of our waste sites and dealing with our waste management, have we at all looked into the possibility of an incinerator and even possibly creating some revenue by being able to allow other municipalities to look at helping them manage their waste through that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that hasn't been looked at. A lot of my waste and recycling focus this year was on the Blue Box Wind Up program. Took up a lot of my time. It's something we would like to dive into, and it was actually on our agenda list for our next Public Works Managers meeting, which got delayed because of COVID as well. But it's a really good point, Sherry, and I'm really curious to learn more about it. So we'll be doing a lot more research in 2021 on that.
Okay, thanks very much. I was just curious.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, though, I have heard discussions about incinerators for years, and I believe the volume that it takes in order to have a recovery from an incinerator is more than 1 or 2 townships in the north. But I believe it's also a Ministry of Environment issue. I'm not so sure there have been many approved over the past 10, maybe 20 years, but it's worth checking out.
Well, the only one I know, Your Worship, is the one in Durham, the Durham model, which is an ideal one. And it's something that we'll be probably talking about in one of our waste meetings, I guess, going forward.
It would be easier if OPG would just take an existing plant and convert it to burning waste and take all of the garbage off our hands.
Yeah, and give us our electricity.
Madam
this
Mayor, if
is-
I can just,
Go
go ahead,
ahead.
Councillor Dewey.
Oh, no, sorry, go ahead. I'm just going to say that it has been an issue. I know when I was on county, and the Eastern Ontario Wardens talks have talked about it, the counties talked about it, and incineration is probably down the road the way to go. But the old story is nobody wants it in their backyard, and it is very expensive. So you're talking like was friend was alluding to there, the city. It would have to be the city of Kingston and several municipalities within the area around Kingston that would have to get in there to be able to afford a capital expenditure like what you would require to handle it. But it's a lot of money.
Okay, so we have a total public works budget of $5,635,980.
So your worship, if I can just add a piece of information for council, you'll see this 11,615 here, that's more going into reserves. What we did this year was we printed off the capital annual requirement from our citywide software, put it into the system, and then I made a reduction so that we're really essentially increasing the money that the software is saying we need to put aside in reserves by a quarter. So I'm hoping that each year, and we're starting small like we did with computers. So obviously Public Works would be a lot more money than what waste is, but we have to start somewhere. So we're trying to increase it a little bit each year.
Okay. Little bits, it doesn't hurt quite as much, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions on that? What's the next section, Kathy?
Okay, well, so council know we're at just about 20 after 3. So if we're going to go till 4, maybe Andy can certainly start off in the building part now.
Everybody's good to go till 4 o'clock? I don't hear any naysayers, so what page do we need for building?
That's what I'm just trying to get to here, and I can't find my mouse with this sharing screen thing.
Thank you, council.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tyson.
Here, I'll probably
Thanks,
just
Tyson.
scroll. and find it
Page
quickly.
15, Michael starts the building.
Thank you, Kathy. Oh, it's 21.
The
Okay,
bottom of page 15 going into 16.
Oh, yeah.
Go.
okay. Here we go. So building services. What we'll do is there anything, Michael, that you want to tell us about this, or Andy, before we start?
Yes, I
asking
will.
questions? Okay,
I will start since Andy's muted. So we did reallocate the salaries for 2021. You'll see that the salaries full-time is up quite a bit by 106,000. So previously we had about 33, 34 based on previous building inspector managers. Andy's finding his time is a lot more spent in the building than in planning and facilities. So we've reallocated it to be 80% in the building. So you'll see that impact on salaries and benefits as well.
okay. Okay, any questions on page 16?
When
Go ahead, Tom.
it's just a point, I probably not it's not a question, but I noticed in building permits, Andy, we did very well last year, and with the, and that's in a COVID year, but with the amount of building that I see starting and like up now, because it's starting to ease up a little bit, you're forecasting 150,000 revenue actually going down from what we did last year. Are you kind of forecasting that the building in our area, like the new starts and the rentals, are going to go down in 21?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Dewey. It's really hard to predict what will happen. We just, between Michael and I, thought it'd be best to stay on the conservative side.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the other reason I would think that is when people obviously are seeing the cost of lumber and the cost is going to triple, they might think twice for another year or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. I mean, I know it's a hard thing. I just thought I'd ask the question.
And
Well, we
Michael likes to
typically-
under budget on revenues.
Exactly. I was going to say that we typically go lower on revenues.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything on the expenses? Okay,
No.
page 17. Okay, we've got capital here as well. Transfer to reserves of 10,000. Michael, that is for?
Transfer to reserves. That would be part of the building truck, the computer at least. I will bring that other section up here, sorry. Yeah, let me just grab it here. Just take 1 second.
We had budgeted 7 last year and spent 7.
Yeah, and I think this is another one of the areas where I was trying to increase, so going through the citywide, yes. So we have 7,300 a year for the truck, and machinery and equipment in general is 3,600. So that the increase is related to the citywide software annual requirement, and then just trying to bite that whole bullet this year.
Okay. All right, no questions. Page 18. So we're looking at total building expense of budget of 414,890. We budgeted 251,492 last year, and we spent 273,624. So it's an increase of 163,000. And that
Yes,
is
and-
because of?
Salary.
Salary and the new deputy building inspector position.
Right.
And then yeah, that's total billing, sorry, including facilities, ignore me.
And the new septic or the new section 8,
Yeah.
that revenue will come back to offset this.
We don't see any revenue from part 8.
Sorry, not part 8, septic.
Yeah, with this part 8 at this point. Yes, we
Oh,
have.
it is.
Are you talking about the reinspection program?
No,
Madam Mayor?
the septic inspection program is supposed to be revenue neutral, is it not?
Yes.
So your worship, this is septic reinspection, the program that we started before, in my mind, separate from part 8, if I can say it that way.
Okay, so this is separate.
Yes, and it is, maybe I need to reword that better. I'll look at that with Andy, but let me bring that up.
Yeah, I don't get this. Why?
Michael,
Yes.
it's Brent. Would it be possible in the future, we just relabel the normal stuff part 8? If we put part 8 in brackets, that'll be short form. I think all of us will know what that is.
Well, and my only question to myself right now is part 8 separate from the reinspection program? Do we want to track it separately? And if we do, then I'd have to set up a separate department like 0448 for part 8, let's say, and that would make it clearer.
It
I
should,
think it has
Michael.
to be separated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be separated, Michael.
Okay.
So we'd have to have part 8 separate from the rest.
But I guess my question then is where is the increase of 163,000?
So again, going back up to buildings, going to be a big part of that. By 95, oop, I really made that bigger. By 95,000, so that's the biggest part of that 160. The other part is the 30,000, maybe I've gone too far now, no. For the septic, so this 30,000 is, I know, Andy, I think what I've got is it's shared agreement with South Frontenac Township. That's what the 30,000 is for. Right or wrong, I'm not 100% sure at this moment, but that's at least what we were thinking of.
Okay, did you show any revenue to offset that?
No, based on, I think, discussions, Andy, like you just said right now, that there's no revenue that we're getting for the septic inspections. if it's the re-inspection program, there would be, before you can see here, we had 30 and 30.
Yeah, there's no revenue, no expense for part 8. The re-inspection program should be, it was canceled for 2021. So there should be no expense for that for this year.
Okay, so the 30,000 that I have in there is only, at least according to my notes, the shared agreement with South Frontenac Township. So there may be expenses that we may have to pay related to part 8. Is that correct?
No, we shouldn't be paying any expenses because everything is, like we said, it's a revenue neutral. So all the applications will go through to South Frontenac. So people will be paying them directly.
Okay, so I have this in here for some reason, whether it was part of the reconciliation or me just thinking it may not have been with Andy at all. If it's just me, I apologize. But yes, I have 30,000 in there for the shared agreement related to part 8.
I think we need to take another look at this because there should be revenue offsetting the expenses of the part 8.
But there won't be any revenue we'll see right away. We can double check that. We will eventually see that come at the end of the year, but we won't know that for this first year, what how it'll come out, because the expense for the inspector, and like I said, it's revenue neutral. So we haven't seen, I think they'll have some time to look at that. Maybe closer, I can I'll look and see what North Frontenac has done with theirs in regards to what kind of figures they put into theirs to maybe help with ours as well.
Because when I hear revenue neutral, what comes to my head is here's the expense, here's the revenue, it should balance out.
Yes, but that's going into South Frontenac, Fran, not into ours.
Yeah, I don't think that should be in there, Michael. But
No.
we can look at that before the next budget meeting.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, and you're right, because the expense is going to go into South Frontenac and so is the revenue. So after all that, if there's money to come back, we will get some money, but no, not at this first. It's a revenue neutral, but not for our township.
Well, and there will be a reconciliation at the end of it.
Yes.
And maybe, I wonder if that's what I was thinking of, to put something in there just in case we ended up getting a bill at the end if the revenue wasn't enough to offset it.
That's correct.
Just trying to remember.
Yeah.
So if we don't have anything in here, I don't know, maybe we leave nothing, maybe we put 10.
Okay,
We'll figure it out, Council.
Yeah, let's
30
just
seems high.
and we can look into it a little further.
Yeah, it seems high.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think there should be any expense in there, that 30,000. That's my thoughts, but go look at it.
Okay.
Okay.
So, page 18. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay. Seeing none, hearing none. I think that is it for the day. We're at cemeteries. Do you want to quickly do cemeteries?
Shoot, sorry.
I just have a question. Is this just operating, or because there's capital for facilities that
Yeah, there's capital.
Oh, okay.
we haven't looked at?
Sorry. What
Yeah,
page is that, Andy?
Well,
The bottom 18.
yes, well, page 30, capital projects facilities, but we didn't go through operating for facilities.
Okay, what page do we need to be on?
Well, I'm scrolling up there, page 26, 25.
Oh.
So we basically skip a page or two over cemeteries in the bottom of page 20, well, 24, I guess. Start at page 24.
Okay. That seemed way too short, eh, Andy?
Yeah,
All
that's right.
right. Here we go. We start with the heliport on page 24.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions or comments on this page?
Just a quick question on the heliport. How often is that used, Andy, or do you have any stats on that?
That's a good question, Tom. I do not have any stats on that, but I know we just replaced some of the lights on the helipad there, and think they were about $150 a piece, so they're not cheap.
How often do you have to test those?
The medical center notifies us. They come on every night, dusk till dawn, and we found the batteries were getting weak in a few of them in the winter months. There, they weren't. They'd come on at night, but they wouldn't be on in the morning, so we had to replace a few.
I would say in the summertime, it probably gets used 2 or 3 times.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it is used a lot more than we think it does, but they don't usually let us know exactly how many times. But yes, it's our responsibility to replace the cones or the lights in those, as well as the flag stock as well. So, and it used to be at one point is the Parham ambulance used to always tell us when that got ratty looking to have it replaced. So.
No, have we had any complaints from the residents with regards to the lights being on? Because
No.
I know at some heliports, like the helicopter pilot, they have they actually activate the lights when they're coming in for a landing.
That's
But we don't
correct.
have-
That's what they do, Tom, is
Oh, they
they,
do.
as soon as they start to come over, then they activate. But no, we've never heard, in all the years we've had the helipad there, never heard any comments from any residents.
Okay, fair enough.
It saved many lives.
Oh, yeah, no, I just thought I'd ask, because it sounded like we left them on all the time, but okay, so we do have that system where the pilot activates the lights when he comes in.
That's correct, they do.
Okay, sorry, that's right.
Okay, anything else on page 24? Andy, if you have anything you want to point out, just jump in. 25.
Through you, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
total Hinchinbrook facilities, we've got a budget of 47,450, but we only spent 33 last year. Andy, it doesn't really break down a large increase anywhere except for contracted services, which is the garbage pickup. Is that the big difference?
I'll have to look into that one, Mickey. It could be some projects that we had in the works that didn't get completed, but I'm not sure where that difference is.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on that page? Page 26.
Madam Mayor, Brent here. In the whole scheme of things, probably small, but it was just something that kind of seemed curious to me. It would be the hydro for the hall in Mountain Grove, 70050. Last year we budgeted 7,600. We spent 69. We're only budgeting 54. I'm just wondering, given the fact that maybe because we may be having some reopenings and we may be getting more and more use out of the halls than we did last year, should we be going lower? We're budgeting less this year than what we actually spent last year. So I'm just wondering if there's some reason for that.
I think it's probably related to usage. Even when yeah, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Cameron. We have some plans this year to, right now, the electric baseboard heaters in Mountain Grove Hall all have individual thermostats, and we've found a lot of times people will crank them up and forget to turn them off. So we're looking at switching them up and putting them all on one central thermostat in hopes to save some heating costs.
Good.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, page 27.
Through you, Madam Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead.
On page 27, we have $33,300 budgeted for the Sherbert Lake Public School miscellaneous expense. We didn't spend any money there last year. What are we going to be doing at the Sherbert Lake Public School site?
I don't
Through your
know.
worship, through your worship to Councillor Gowdy, that is the email that you sent me today, Madam Mayor, for the 33,300 for the communal servicing. I think it's a research or whatever, sorry, I'm losing the right word. But initial Councillor Gowdy had that coming out of reserves because we raised 30,000 last year, but never actually got to the project. So I initially had it coming out of reserves, but now we're actually getting a revenue source in. The mayor sent me an email today, so I've got it. It's adjusted in the council review. You'll see it when we go through the version to version adjustment, but obviously it wasn't done in time for it to come out here.
Yeah, it's the communal services review that needs to be done for seniors housing or communal system for the village.
And Michael put it to there because that's the location. I already had the department set up. In my mind, it connected where the location was.
Right.
Okay. Can you correct me, Madam Mayor? Is there not money that was allocated at the county level for all the research and stuff for the seniors housing? Please and thank you.
It is, but this is different than just the housing. This is a communal system for the village.
Okay.
That the residents would use when it gets built. We got to build the system first before we do the building.
And may I go back to Councillor Gowdy's question for the Hinchinbrook recreation or the hall stuff? Thank you. So it was 49 budget, 33 actual, being a $15,000 difference. Most of that was in the contract here, being $9,000, and I can make that bigger, but that's the majority of that.
Michael, has the new cost of waste disposal been tallied into the facilities?
Andy was putting that in today, I believe.
So that 88,000 has been divided out against all of these properties?
It
Well,
should
be
show
over 3 years.
It should show under Central Frontenac Rec General, I believe is the line. Contracted services.
Yes, you're right. But it won't show on this report.
It won't show on this report.
Because I printed these reports on Tuesday and Tuesday during the day or Wednesday, it wasn't reflected in the actual budget here. So that's another adjustment that will come out when we look at the version to version adjustments.
Okay. So when we say 30,000 for Olden Settlers Monument, that's to repair or replace the monument? Sorry, 717 contracts.
I was going to ask that question.
Olden Settlers Monument? Is it the monument or is it the hall?
That's the monument at the hill, the cenotaph, isn't it? On the hill?
Olden Rec General and Memorial Park expense is where 30,000 is there. And the contract waste pickups, we've generally put them under each district's general rec, which I see there's 2 L's there. So it's not specific to the memorial. They're lumped together.
Okay.
They just always have been.
That's mainly the grounds contract for all of Olden.
Okay, that makes sense then.
But just to go along with what Her Worship was saying there, but the monument that we're talking about, they've got 2 monuments there. One is the cenotaph and the other is a monument up on the hill. That's what I would call the Olden Settlers Monument, is it not? And what did we spend on that? Or what are we going to spend 30,000 on this year on that?
Yeah, maybe we should name that different.
Yeah,
because the
because
bulk of the money is for the hall.
But I'm reading that it's covering three different units there, not just one. Am I correct, Michael?
Well, I see Olden Rec General and Memorial Park expense. I can't picture in my mind which one it is, other than the monument being that one up on the hill and there's rock and you have to climb up to it.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm thinking for that, but I think that's under somewhere else. I'll make a note to look for it and try and get something that works for Andy and I to make sense and hopefully make sense to the rest of the council.
Okay.
Yeah, it It should just say Olden contracts is what it should say.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets confusing. Okay.
Oh, I see there. Okay.
Anything else on that page?
No.
Page 28. Okay, no questions. Shall we go to 29? Swim program. Will we even have a swim program this year coming up?
I doubt that we're gonna have, but we'll have to wait and see, but I don't think the thing's not opening up enough, probably won't be able to.
But Michael, is this an in and out?
It's
Is it
actually a
revenue
savings.
neutral?
It's a savings when we don't run the program. You can see the net amount, where $10,000, 13,000 revenue, yeah, 6,000 revenue, 16,000. So it costs us $11,000, or at least we budgeted for that in 2020. So we're actually saving money when it's not being run, unfortunately, in a sense that it's not being run.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, page 30. We have a lot of facilities, eh?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so Central Frontenac rec expenses, $475,177. We spent $311,849. And we had budgeted last year $306. So the total rec for the whole, everything is $472,177.
And just to point out, Madam Mayor, the North Frontenac Arena right now, we have budgeted for the major projects that they have going on until they hear if their grant was approved officially.
Okay, so that could change, that 333?
The 333, sorry, I'm not seeing, yeah, sorry. That wouldn't change. The money, sorry, let me think about that for a second. Yes, that would change. Right now we have it offset coming from reserves because we put enough money aside. I did send Tim and Louise an email to see what we could drop our yearly annual contribution to reserves. We were putting 75,000 aside for the floor and whatnot. I did drop it to 50 in this budget, hoping that maybe we can drop it more, that the major projects will be out of the way. So yes, that 333 could drop and the revenue would be offsetting it. So it's really neutral.
Okay.
Can I add something there, Michael? The top of the page there is 35,000 for garbage pickup.
You did get it in there. Good job.
But where is the rest of it?
But that's 1 year's worth then.
So 88 was for 3 years. So that's 3 divided by 88.
Correct.
Yes, which does not match that exactly.
105, you go here 3 years.
Okay. So it's not up that much then.
No, I looked at that the other day, Michael, and I did not make any changes to it. That was already in there.
Okay, I thought, sorry, Andy, I thought in our discussions today, I thought you had put it in there. So yes, I did have initially 15,000 and I put in, or one of us did anyways, increase re 2021 RFP 20,000. So we could probably adjust that down. And that was probably me putting it in as an estimate based on a conversation that Andy and I might have had. So we could take it down to 29.5 unless you think there's any other miscellaneous things that may happen, Andy.
There could be the odd extra pickup, so you should have a little buffer there.
Although it's probably going to be a quiet year for events again. Not to be a naysayer, but in reality. Okay, capital projects. Let's look at those. It's 10 to 4, so we're almost through Andy's part. So 10,000 for Hampton Brook Fairgrounds. And 70
Madam
for
Mayor.
Hampton Library. Yes, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, too, Andy, the Rampant Hall and Library, are we planning on paying for that, or are we waiting for a grant on that one?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it really does need to be replaced this year. It's getting pretty shaky. I'm putting in for the grant. One question I have, when I was going through the questions in the grant, if we put in for over 100,000, it gets reviewed at the national level, where if we keep it under 100, it just gets reviewed at the local level. So I think it'd be best to apply for and keep it under 100,000 for both ramps, that being Soldiers Memorial Hall and Arden Hall.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, through you to Andy, I know we have 10,000 down for the Hingenbrook Fairgrounds. I was wondering if you could maybe just provide a little more detail with regard to the 10,000, because I know that there's still a number of things that have to be done. There may be some work done on fencing and some brush clearing, but if you could maybe expand a little in terms of what the plan is.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yeah, there was some more landscaping to be done there. It'd be nice to be able to cut the grass, around the old fire hall right up to the playground, was what I had in mind there.
Yeah, we have in the notes, Andy, we have playground landscaping.
Okay, so that must be the majority of what we had in mind there.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, it's Victor here.
Yeah, go ahead, Victor.
Going back to that grant application for the ramps, there were two ramps, the one in Kennebec Hall and the one at Oso Hall, and their total was 150,000. So if we reduce our grant application to below 100,000, are we then anticipating that we will make up the other 50,000 or whatever it was to cover both ramps?
You want me to answer that, Andy?
That's correct.
Why is it so expensive to build ramps?
The one at Soldiers Memorial Hall, to route it to the main entrance would be right next to the building. So we're going to incorporate a roof over it and we can put lights in it to keep it lit and keep the snow off of it. The one in Arden, there has been moisture issues in the basement. So we were going to look at waterproofing that side before we get the ramp in the way, and that way we won't have to worry about it.
So if I can add to that, Your Worship, the Oso Hall one would save the operating costs, as Andy's saying. It would keep the snow off of the deck as well. So that's obviously a good thing. We did both talk about that, and keeping it under 100,000 we thought was a good thing. And there was another point I was going to make. To Councillor Hayes, Andy and I talked about that I asked him if we could put the grant in, but there's no guarantee that we'll get it. And then we still have to do this project. So if we do get it, it's a win. If not, we still have to get it done. So that's why we've only put the expense in the budget.
Okay, thank you.
One more thing, Soldiers Memorial Hall has no ramp right now because it had to be removed to pave the parking lot.
Okay. Shall we turn to page 31?
One of the things, Madam Mayor, that I think on that page, security cameras, I think that's probably a good investment. It'll save us a lot of money in the future.
Yeah. On page 31, 115,000 for Oso Hall. What are we doing with that money?
That's for the ramp. I was figuring about 75 for the ramp. We could cut that back. I'm not sure how far we want to go with the hall, but the handicap washroom, the floor has actually rotted through next to the toilet, so the floor needs to be replaced. If we're doing that, I thought it'd be a good time to upgrade the washroom to current standards. With all the bells and whistles that are required, you'd probably be looking at another 20,000 to widen the door, put the operators and the emergency call system in.
And we also have the hydro pole there.
That's another, yeah.
For
Something
15.
that came up recently was to bring the new electrical service into the hall. The conductors that ran the 600 volt heaters are not large enough to run the new service, and Hydro came out, did a layout. If we're to run the lines in overhead, the trees beside the new stairs would have to be removed, and the mast on the building is not large enough for the new conductor, so the mast would need to be replaced. So their recommendation was to put a new pole in beside the trees and go underground from there to the meter at the hall. And it's 10,000 for the pole and probably close to 5,000 to trench it. There's a lot of rock there. It would have to be encased in concrete as well. But we did get the grant from the Little Theater Group, and it was very close to 15,000 to offset that.
Okay. So any more questions on page 31?
Through
We've
you,
got
Madam
totals.
Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Nikki.
Andy, have you heard anything about the grant you applied for the assessment on the buildings?
Michael could answer that.
Oh, okay.
Through your worship to Councillor Gowdy, we haven't received an update in a while, and I think before we were 150 of 230 something, and they were doing 20 a month or 20 every 2 weeks, I forget exactly. But I can send them an email and double check on that, but I have not had an update recently. What we've done is we were actually, I realized looking through reserves, we had about 70,000 in there. So we have 65,000 in here to cover off what we think it might happen. And just in talks the other day, we might end up doing a joint RFP, which may help bring those costs down as well. Just say it that way for now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we got anything else on that page? Okay, so we are at a total of 1,006,654. We spent 640 and we budgeted 70708 last year. So it's up almost 300,000 for facilities. And that does it for facilities, I believe. Andy?
It does so.
Michael, the one thing that we'll see next budget meeting, I think, is how the revenues are working against these department numbers.
Yeah, so yeah, last year, I think what you're getting at, Madam Mayor, is a discussion of last year we pulled 1.4 million from reserves. This year we're pulling 700,000. Obviously, we can't keep doing that. We can't keep taking out loans. Last year we had the grant revenue coming in. So to keep the same level of capital project and not have the revenue, obviously that's going to be about that $3 million increase that we're seeing in capital projects. So at some point our hands are, in my mind, our hands are going to be tied, and that we'd either have to do less projects or raise tax revenue, or as Tyson keeps reminding me, which is great, I love that he's thinking that way, in terms of considering everything is reduced levels of service. And the asset management, as they talked about the other day, the proposed levels of service that we're going to have to be able to finance over 10 years, I think that's what we're going to end up seeing as a result of that. But yes, the less revenues we have, obviously, the more taxes we have to raise if we want to keep the same projects.
And we also too, Michael, we'll have some of these other expenses that we're going to be looking at that we're going to be taking out, or, you know, like Zealand Road, or look at other projects.
Yes.
And we also don't know yet how we ended the year as far as a surplus or a deficit.
We don't. I believe that we will be in a surplus, and that surplus is, in a sense, quote unquote, already accounted for coming into this year's budget, which will go on to Tuesday.
So in other words, the surplus goes into reserves and comes out of reserves to reduce this budget.
Well, our policy says that we put any reserves or any surplus, sorry, into reserves, and any deficit we will pull out of reserves. So we're going to obviously follow the policy and put it into reserves. We're just hoping Michael's right. The auditors don't find something else. They'll be here next week, by the way. And if they don't, then great. What we've budgeted, we can still pull out of reserves, which we will anyways. It's just that our reserve will remain pretty consistent or constant.
They wouldn't increase for this year.
Do we have our up-to-date information in our assessment? I know you've said assessment increase. Do we have that? And do we also have information in regard to provincial transfers to us at this point?
So the increase in assessment is $12 million, and that is 99.9% probably related to the building department. So that results in an extra $112,000 in revenue, which is part of that 2.84. So on the backs of existing taxpayers, it's about 1.64 levy increase. So this 2.84 in levy increase equals the $16, so per 100,000. So that really does take into account the new building that's come in. Provincial grants, I mean, they keep coming out. We keep applying for them as we can. Like Tyson was saying, that's why he kept his engineering a little bit higher to get projects ready for anything that comes up. Anything else that would surprise us, we'll find a way to make it work if they're giving us free money.
Well, and that's the best we can do. Go ahead, Bill.
I'd like to make a comment also, Michael, when you suggest that it's like $16 per $100,000 worth of assessment. In actual fact, the properties that are assessed at, say, $500,000 or $400,000 or $500,000, that in actual fact gets doubled by that amount of money. So someone paying their taxes of say $3,000 or $4,000, this is actually going to mean an increase of probably $200 or $300 on their tax bill. So we basically, I know you understand that, but it's something that we have to keep in mind also. So
it's 300.
And it's the same as anybody that's at 200,000 would be paying $32.
More.
Yeah. That's
33, and then 300,000 would be 49. And it still works out to $5, $6, let's say max sort of a month. And the gas tank changes. I hate keeping barking on the same example, but the gas changes $3, $5.
Right.
And it changes daily sometimes.
Okay, what I'd like to suggest is that folks, after today's meeting, look at the numbers again, write down any questions that you might have or any ideas that you might have. We are meeting again, what, Tuesday next week?
Yes, Tuesday at 1 o'clock.
And we'll start the meeting by answering any or asking any of those questions from this session. And Michael will have made adjustments. So we'll look at those adjustments and then we'll move forward with the other departments. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, it
Sounds
does.
good. Sounds good.
Okay. Bill, did you have a question?
No, I was thumbs up to that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And okay, moved by Tom and seconded by Bill. That we adjourn this meeting to meet again March 2nd.
Second.
Second.
Okay, March 2nd.
March
2nd. All those in favor? Motion's carried. I hear it's coming in like a lion on March 2nd.
That's okay.
was
That
it a
means the
lamb?
motorbike came out.
Hopefully, because we've got March the first, Fran, so maybe it'll be like a lamb.
There you go. Okay, it's 4 o'clock, so
All right.
Good
Goodbye,
timing.
everybody.
Thank you, council.
Have a
Have a
good
good night.
weekend,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Have a good
Take
weekend.
care, everybody.